You're listening to Fintechs, a podcast that explores the innovations and challenges in Canada's fintech landscape. My name is Sue Britton. I'm the CEO of Firefly Growth and an entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience in the financial industry. I also serve on the FinPay committee, and I'm an advisor for Holt Exchange. Join us as we sit down with industry leaders, trailblazers, and pioneers to discuss their journey, the evolution of fintech, and what's next for Canada's ever-dynamic fintech ecosystem. Everyone, this is Romi Kohli, and Romi, you're vice president, and then I'm going to ask you to, add all the titles that are on your, all the things, the jobs. It sounds like you do a lot of things at Everlink, but lots to talk about today. But why don't we start with, please introduce yourself to everybody.
Sure. Romi Kohli, Vice President of Technology and Digital Channels at Everlink, and also Innovation. Been at Everlink, I think it's going on 2.5 years. I have a very colorful past. At Everlink, I was there before, then I went to Interact, and then I did a fintech, and knock on wood, my fintech is still going strong in the US. And then I also came back to Everlink to help them out and having a great time. Great team over there.
Oh, that's great. How long have you been with Everlink then?
So I would say my first foray with Everlink was for 5 years. And then there, I went to Interact. So I headed up, I was their vice president of technology at that time, reporting to Mark O'Connell. So we did like the e-transfer, mobile payments, interchange for Flash was kind of like the fame to claim over there. And then from there, I just, got this itch for some reason. I go, look, I've done everything in payments. What haven't I not done? I said, I haven't done a fintech yet. So partner up with this friend of mine in Jacksonville, Florida, Richard Jackman, opened up a company called Fintanium. And it's basically payments, but it's more business to business, like accounts payables, accounts receivables. So cool. I was there for a very long time. And, looking at I don't know if anyone's really worked in a fintech or not, but you don't make a lot of money. You actually pay all the high salaries to your technology people and your salespeople. So I was on a ramen noodle diet.
Yeah.
And then,
it's not the money unless you're one of the lucky ones. It's the thrill, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So it's exciting, and it is exciting. And, I was looking at my wife and looking at my children, and my son was going to university that year. And Mark Ripplinger from Everlink called me back and said, hey, I have a position open. Can you come back on board? Because you're like a plug and play, because I know all the products and services and how Everlink operates.
Awesome.
And I go, can I have a little bit of Fintanium on the side? He goes, yeah, you can. So here I am, and we're doing some pretty cool things. Well,
maybe we're breaking the mold, right? Because
I hope so.
I kind of have this similar setup with Beam Credit Union, and I'm still got a toe in Firefly Growth. So, how many kids do you have?
I have two. My son, that's 20, and my daughter's 16, but she's actually 21 in the way she thinks and the way she, argues.
She's going to love you for this. She's going to love you for this. And so tell us about Everlink. What does Everlink do?
So Everlink's a pretty interesting company in the Canadian payment space. We're a very, I would say, powerful company, but a company that's not well publicized, right? Mm-hmm. So we process, in the partnership with Interact, we process pretty much all the mobile payments that are happening in Canada with partnership with Interact on the TSP, the token service provider product. We also provide ATM driving, point of sale, card issuance, fraud to, I would say, about 95% of the credit unions in Canada. And we also provide the similar products to our Charter B bank. So, the banks that are like ethnically based, and some other digital banks as well, like Manulife Financial, ICICI Bank, to name a few, Laurentian Bank as well. And interesting enough, we also provide debit services for a lot of huge international point of sale acquirers. So names that you recognize, Square, Adyen, WorldPay, and just the list goes on.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, we do. We process quite a bit, right? We process quite a bit.
Wow.
But where do you think the white hair comes from? It was black when I started it, but like got more gray when I got to Interact, got really gray when I went to Fintechs, and it's really, I'm getting a little bit of color back now since I'm back at Everlink. So
I won't comment on, because we have no evidence of this. So, we might need to see pictures, but oh, that's awesome. So you do a ton of stuff. So why isn't Everlink more well known?
Our motto is we just want to be a very strong payment rail for our customers. We want to make Square look good. We want to make Interact look good. We want to make our credit unions, our bank customers look good, providing an outstanding service that's up 7/24, 365. Right. So if we do our jobs, our customers will hopefully benefit from that. And like, when we talk about like, should we, go to the end customer? Should we become a bank? Should we do all that stuff? But the answer is like a hard no, right? Because our expertise and core competencies on, payment infrastructure, right? And so we focus a lot of attention on that. We try to, think outside the box. And like you see a market, we're like, Romi, I need you to deliver cheaper, faster, and better every single time, right? So we're constantly, tweaking this, tweaking that, and investing into our people as well. Because the reason why I believe our brand is pretty strong is just because of the folks that we have that work countless of hours at Everlink just to make sure that everything is going well. And the beautiful thing as well, it allows us to innovate too, which is kind of cool. Right. Wow. But we innovate. We innovate in partnership with a lot of financial institutions, point of sale acquirers, and now Fintechs.
And how long have you guys been in existence? Sounds like a while if you went from black to gray.
Are you saying I'm old? I relate it. And don't quote me. I would say when Mark Ripplinger took over was in 2005. So I would say that would be the birth or the pivotal point of Everlink turning the corner to becoming a product-centric company. Have I think 7 to 8 lines of businesses and growing. And opening up other lines of businesses outside our traditional book of business, which is basically payments or provided payment services for our credit union, right? So we've done a lot. We did a lot outside the box thinking and trying to help customers to move their yardstick to get into other market segments, right? And just recently we launched e-transfer as well. So fully comply with e-transfer. That's where the fintechs are happening as well too. We're really helping them help themselves to win businesses because, being a fintech and how fintechs operate, I love them. I think they're great. I think they're a force to be reckoned with. So how can we marry traditional banking with a new way of thinking from a fintech perspective? There's definitely a path there, and we see a lot of value. And I think some of our bank or credit union customers are actually benefiting greatly with our fintech relationship and our e-transfer products. So it's very symbiotic across the board.
Interesting. Yeah. Very cool. Well, I mean, hopefully, it sounds like you've got a good chunk of business already. So it's not about the fact that you're not known and need to get known. It's more, maybe a little bit of a more awareness of what you do so that, people can be taking full advantage of it. Because I'm assuming you serve, like, do you know how many customers? I don't know.
So you know what? I hope my boss doesn't see this video because I can guarantee you he's going to drill me afterwards. We deal with quite a number of credit unions and bank customers. I would say probably somewhere around the 150, 200. Yeah. And for point of sale, we're probably we just launched Stripe in December. Cool. So I'd say about 4 or 5 of them. And the fintechs, it's kind of hard to keep up. They're just growing pretty quickly. It's going extremely well. It really
That's
is.
Great.
I'm very bullish. Yeah.
Well, and for your team, they can repost this podcast when it gets published and correct all of our mistakes. There you go.
They will. I'm sure they will.
Yeah. But I don't think it matters how exact we are, at least to the people that are listening. who are curious about Everlink. So, and like looking at, your peers and the whole space in Canada, what's your view of, the state of payments? Yeah.
So I'm going to give you the good, bad, and the ugly, if that's okay with you. The good thing is, what I love about Canada, we talk to each other. We're not like in the US, right? There is a collaboration method. And I love Interact because, Interact actually spawned that collaboration in payments. So I think they were the pioneers, and probably globally, that if you talk back in when I was in the diapers, that collaboration existed amongst the big five to form Interact, and that collaboration kind of seeds and expels out to everyone within the payment ecosystem. So that's the good. Okay. The bad part is that we were, I would say, maybe I'm just too much of a Canadian. We were like a payment gem globally, right? We were so far ahead of the game with the e-transfer product. Like, to e-transfer, think about it, it's almost like 20 years old, right?
That's true. That's true.
That
point.
Product is fantastic, right? And I just believe that we are now trying to catch up to other countries, right, in terms of payments, right? And here comes the ugly, right? The ugly is basically we've fallen massively behind, right?
Yeah.
If you look at India, if you look at even Thailand, my cousin lives in Thailand, and the way they do payments, right? They just understand their bank account number, and it's P2P in real time. So it's fantastic.
Yeah.
We're talking to a network in India to see if there's a potential partnership between us and Everlink. And what they've explained to me in their on their payment stack and how they wrapped in digital identity, and they eliminated, I don't know if you know about India, but you get things done by paying people off, basically, right? So with their new payment ecosystem and mixing in digital identity, it became a cleaner system. So the person that's making a basket that probably costs them $4, right, will get like, $10 for that basket as opposed to the old way, right? So it's fascinating, but that's the ugly. We've fallen behind, and I think we need to figure out how we can catch up, or at least.
It's so interesting, isn't it? You're bringing me back to 2018, when there was a couple of organizations got together to create this pay tech report, and I was fortunate to have a company that could do that research and publish it, and we did this timeline, and Interact was, a number of things actually along that timeline back in the early 2000s, and until probably the global recession. There were a bunch of big things, to your point, right, about Interact. And it makes me wonder, because even this dates me for sure, but I think it was either the year before I got married or the year I got married that the Blue Jays won the World Series.
And the first or the second one?
Both,
okay,
right. Well,
right.
One would be before, because they win back to back?
They did.
92 and 93, I think, or 91 and 92. So then we have all these, and then even with the recession, Canada, and I hear this all the time, this narrative that, we're one of the most stable financial systems globally, and we've got this halo around us because we got through the recession without our banks, experiencing the same things that happened in the US or the UK or other areas. But the problem, I feel is when we have those, big, wins, we get complacent really quickly, and we use it as a way to say, okay, we're good for a while. And then the problem, I don't know when was the last time the Blue Jays won the World Series?
I see your point.
Well, it's you gotta, and I think I've been pretty public about this. The whole thing about the banks making it through the recession, I think led them to be, too arrogant about their, position in the market, right? We're strong, we're stable, we're low risk or whatever. And then that sort of stunted their growth in terms of innovation because, well, we don't want to do anything that would create risk because that's what people look to us for, to be this stable. Anyway, so I'm glad you mentioned Interac because, and of course, we probably both consider Debbie Gamble a friend, somebody that, has been a huge innovator in the space. And now they just announced, not that this is an Interac podcast, but they just announced their chief product officer and chief client officer appointments at Interac. So that's an organization that seems to be getting the right injection of talent to kind of help us get back on the map globally. So
I think so.
Yeah. So you said the good, the bad. Was that or did you go good and ugly?
No, I go good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly is basically we've fallen back. We've fallen behind, right? And then, you can't like point at one thing, right? You have honestly, I think Interac is a fantastic company, and all the products and services are just exciting, right?
Yeah.
But there's a political layer around all of that, right? Then you have Payments Canada, then you have RTR, right? So there's a little bit of confusion. Then you have the fintechs, right? The fintechs are saying, hey, give me access to this network. Give me access to the network. That was what Payments Canada's mantra was. We'll give you access to that network. And that's been delayed, right? So I feel for the fintechs. So that's where I kind of wrap into it from an Everlink perspective, understanding how the banks work, understand how Interac work, understand the rules and regulations and everything like that.
Yeah. We
could be a constructive bridge between the two until the RTR comes to fruition. But I know that we'll be there as well too, right? So that's why we say it's a symbiotic relationship between the fintechs and the banks. We understand how the banks think. We understand the compliance AML. We also understand fintechs on time to market and user experience. And we're trying to do that constructive bridge, and it's actually working well.
So if I was to ask you to sum up, what does that all mean in terms of the current state of things in Canada? Are we starting to kind of crawl towards getting better, or are we, how would you classify us?
I think the conversations are happening, which are fantastic. We just need to go and get going. So if you want to define crawl, I know where to crawl to. We just need to pick up and figure out how we can walk faster, then jog, and then sprint, and then just run full steam, right? Because I think I would say a lot of countries that where we were like miles ahead of them. Yeah, it's the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Right, and we just gotta stitch it all together, right? And just go strong.
So. Maybe, do you want to dig into a little bit more about some of the products that you guys offer? Because you've mentioned things that, you and I might understand, but, if you're somebody in a product role at a credit union or, an innovation role in a small bank, can you give us like an example of how,
Sure.
Well, and maybe, before we go to the exciting news, that you shared recently, just get make it easy for people to understand, like what's an example of something you're doing a lot of with your customers that you've just...
I'll try not to offend any organization here, but when you're dealing with some financial institutions, they're so honed on their banking products, right? Understanding that this is how the banks work, this is how the businesses work, and everything like that, right? So I bring a little bit of fintech talent into Everlink and into business payments and also the banks, right? So what we did was we created these little prototypes for financial institutions to basically allow businesses to basically digitize their payments, so they don't have to write a check. As an example, right? Okay. But what we did was, it's not good enough anymore to provide a rail. It's just not, right? You need to give a good user experience, or the business aren't going to use it. So we got the rail. That's easy. But when it comes to digital e-transfer, we got to get that user experience. You got to think like a fintech. That's why these fintechs are so successful, right? Because the user experience is fantastic. What we created is a kind of like business banking payment type of portal. I haven't really come up with the name of that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But
Business banking payment portal, the BBPP?
Yeah, could be. But what we've done is we've convinced some financial institutions that, hey, if you have this as part of your online business banking, online business banking portal, and you have a little icon basically saying, would you like to make payments? So what we've done is that we've created a kind of like a prototype that actually will allow customers to do e-transfers to their vendors, maybe to receive payments coming from their customers, depending on accounts receivable set, accounts payables, but and riding the e-transfer rails. But it's not just to just do the transaction. It's also the operational burden that comes along with that. What we've done is we've created a self-serve portal. So let's say, for example, I need to send you some money. What happens if I type in your email address wrong? Okay. You know, so we have, auto detection and everything like that built in. So the business community, so the CFO or the accounts payable clerk, accounts receivable clerk can understand in layman's term what's wrong with this transaction, right? And then when you add, like if you talk to small businesses and you talk to the CFOs or the accountants who really matter, it's good enough to send the payment, but the person has to accept it. And if it's month end and they haven't accepted it, they have to then accrue that over to the next month, right? So those little things, so we create little dashboards and everything like that, try to make it very CFO accounting type of friendly type of experience, so they understand where the payments are. So that's it just resonated when we talked to this one financial institution and we talked to their business product people. It's like, this makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because part of these rails that you build, it's the operational component of it that people just kind of forget about. So we add more people to the help desk. So what we try to do is try to go as self-serve as possible.
Very cool. That's great. See, I mean, we could spend probably the rest of the time talking about all your products, because I suspect, and now that I'm inside a credit union as a, and working with these folks, like we don't assume that everybody is as knowledgeable as, you, right? Like, and I think we in the fintech world or in the service provider world might underestimate a little bit about how much, some of our clients can actually comprehend and understand. Like, we don't make it easy for them, because sometimes we talk about our products and we don't actually make it link to their,
real problems.
Yeah. So like you just said, the user experience, like it's great that you can facilitate, these payments, be that connective tissue between, them and Interac or them and Square or whatever. But when you make it real by saying you can actually deliver that user experience front end, like that's probably more the problem in some ways. Because they probably don't have the in-house resources to do that kind of work. So
they don't. And then also just understanding how a business actually works. So you're actually, when you're selling, especially in payments, and I learned this in my fintech, you're actually selling to the accounting department. That's where it matters, right? They're the guys that are on the nut to basically make sure that their books are in order, to understand where their payroll, if I hit payroll or not going to hit payroll, where's my accounts receivable, where's my payables, right? So it definitely matters, right? Yeah. Definitely matters.
Yeah. And, I don't know if you solve this problem, because I don't know if you're in the use case you just talked about, the Interac limits are still a challenge, right? If you're a business that wants to pay some, more than $3,000 or even more than $25,000, you get into, a little bit more of a complex world. And I think that's majority of the reason why people still use checks, because it's either too expensive to, make payments that are outside of some of these digital ones for the smaller end of the market. The bigger end, has cash management, platforms from their banks, but that small to medium-sized business doesn't, or may not. Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because at the end of the day, you're right. Limits are always going to be an issue. I'm highly confident that Interac understands that. And I'm highly confident that they'll look at those limits and, nudge it up, right?
Uh-huh.
Just to get the market comfortable with that. Like mobile payments, like flash transactions, they were stuck at $100 for the longest time. Now it's a convenience factor and everyone's comfortable. It's bumped up to a higher limit. So I believe that
living through the pandemic, that was an absolute necessity.
I don't want to say that, but yeah.
Well, no, because it happened during that and maybe it wasn't just this, but my perception at the time was, you had to have some contactless way of allowing people to make purchases in stores, and the limits were a problem. So anyway.
I blame the inflation more than I blame the pandemic. Like the limits are higher now. Groceries were much more expensive, right?
Well, and I don't know if you saw it, but the Globe and Mail my bad. I am very sorry, Leah. The Logic and Leah Golob. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but anyway, she just did a interview with Wealthsimple and about their, payments strategy. And I mean, I don't know how many people put Wealthsimple and payments strategy in the same sentence, right? And she's leading that for them as well as other things. But she was talking about, now that they're able to settle because they have a settlement account with the Bank of Canada, they're one of the big benefits, and this will also come with the real-time rail or with the, ultimately banks and credit unions can set policies that change those limits on the amount you can transfer, isn't it? It isn't just a restriction from Interac, but Wealthsimple can allow you to transfer as much as they want because they're on the nut to actually make sure that those funds are good and will settle at the end of the day. So, if you go and actually try and transfer money from your bank account to Wealthsimple, you can transfer $100,000 if you want.
Listen, I love those companies. I love the Wealthsimples, the Questrays, and the likes of those folks, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are moving the yardstick that actually moves the industry as well, too, right?
Yep.
So I'm totally. I think this is a fantastic thing, right? That they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and it's also amazing that you're facilitating some of this too, because Wealthsimple is big enough now, $30 billion in assets. There's a lot of people who said that would never happen, that these guys would never make it. That's kind of I love seeing it, to your point. But what are some of the other trends in the industry that you're seeing?
I see a big pickup in business to business. I think that's an exciting line of it, but industry that we need to focus our attention on, especially when it comes to embedded financing and stuff like that, right? I also see, especially with the open banking, we can talk about that a little bit later as well too. I do believe there's going to be tremendous amount of information that's going to get downloaded to a lot of financial institutions to help them make good decisions on products and services. I also believe that I'm a crypto fan. I'm not a crypto fan, depending on when you talk to me, right? Not sure what's going to happen there. Was on a call, I think, 2 weeks ago with Fintechs Canada. They were talking about their strategy.
I missed that one. I missed that call. That was wasn't that on the central bank digital currency?
It was.
Update?
It was absolutely. Yeah. Honestly, it wasn't much of an update, to be truth. But it's interesting. So, but what excites me is RTR. I'll tell you why, right? And I calling RTR as real-time settlement. We already have real-time payments. That's Interac. E-transfer is real-time, right? But it's the real-time settlement that excites me. And I'll tell you in so many different ways how that's going to help the organization, especially financial institutions. If I want to board a fintech or a financial or another kind of company, and they want to do like an AML or a checking on them to make sure that's basically the money that's coming in is safe. But RTR's going to expedite and speed up that AML checking and everything like that, right? Because they will know who the founding bank is, do the real time debits and credits, so they know that the funds are safe and secure, right? The big thing that I have from a let's say just from an e-transfer perspective, if I want to send money out for a business, I have to make sure there's enough money to cover what I'm sending out.
Yeah.
Because not repeatable, right? So when you mix in RTR, imagine this: we can take the money out of their home bank, place it there, and then send out the funds, and ensure that the whole ecosystem is in sync and in balance, right?
Yeah.
So that takes an element of risk, especially for a financial institution when they're reporting, companies, and they're saying, okay, you know what, we need to hold 3-day balances, we need to have a lot of credit in case you're doing this or you're doing that. So when you factor the RTR into that conversation, that streamlines quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I mean, ultimately, I agree with you. It's funny that you put the emphasis on the financial institutions, because in the bubble that I live in, most of the narrative is about the benefit for those that will be able to get their own direct access to the real-time rail, and like a Wealthsimple, who is only able to do that because they are a regulated securities dealer. And if they weren't, they wouldn't be eligible for a settlement account or for this. They would have been if the real-time rail was up and running and they made that application to become a direct access partner. But maybe just to see what you think about, all the non-financial institutions that might, want to apply to get access to the RTR, and then be able to do their own, sort of, whether it's just the exchange of data or the the clearing and settlement of the actual payment. Do you think that there's going to be a lot of non-FIs that will want to go there?
100%. But in terms of what size of that non-FI wouldn't get access to the rail, that's the $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
Right, because you have to hold some form of float at the Bank of Canada to cover
collateral.
Exactly, right. So it really depends on that. Say, for example, like a Square, I think this is music to the ears, right? Right. Mm-hmm. So for companies like those, absolutely, I think it's very valuable for them to get to funds quicker. Imagine paying out the merchant almost same day for this is great business value for companies like themselves, or other types of point of sale acquirers. That's what I would do, just to kind of get more market share and really get the money back into the merchants, into their coffers quicker rather than wait a couple of days, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we're just literally skimming the surface of all the good stuff that could come from this. And anyway, so back to Everlink. Do you see yourself actually helping, fintechs get, enable them to, I don't know, maybe in a sponsor kind of role? Would you guys ever want to get direct access to the rail?
Absolutely. Right. I think it just makes a lot of sense. I think Everlink is big enough to do something like that. Mm-hmm. And so we can help facilitate quicker payments. And if you, like I said, the real-time settlement is fascinating because it does reduce an element of risk on that part of it. For example, one thing I completely skipped, that we are actually a direct participant in the Interact debit network.
Okay. Right.
We're not a bank. Right. All it did was, and I think maybe Sue, you might have been a part of that discussion. I can't remember, but they opened up the network to non-financials. And I just can't wait for Interact to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. I'm hoping, right, if that happens. But that's what Payment Canada is designed to do, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's just going to bring in new entries into the market, and then we can then offer those services to the downstreams.
Yeah,
right? And is what we're really all about, right?
You just made me realize, one of the things, because we have so much rhetoric kind of type conversations about banks, and I'm guilty of that. But when all the stuff we're talking about, because I did an interview with Ron Morrow with the Bank of Canada to talk about the RPAA, and one of the things that and it didn't get into the interview that got actually released, but one of the things we talked about was this whole sort of debanking by banks of fintechs. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but, that's one concern that I think generally from a competitive standpoint is that if you need to, if as a fintech or a PSP, you need to have a bank that sponsors you to be able to actually, be in business, right?
Yep.
And so the banks have a lot of power in that relationship to dictate, what, how, when, and all that kind of good stuff. But
yes.
But, most of the rhetoric about the banks is about nothing to do with that. It's more about, the products and services that they offer and the restrictions they place on their customers and stuff. So it's kind of like this, almost like if you unpack it, the role that the banks are, limiting competition is in that sponsorship sort of role as the way that the system is built. The financial institution is the only one that can get access to the payment systems like we're talking about. But their role is not to necessarily be that, service provider to fintechs.
I hear you. And that's where the opportunity is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Like you 100% agree with you on that one. But there are some, I would call them not, banks that are looking at this void that needs to be filled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what? Some of these financial institutions are stepping up.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, but you got to understand from their mind, they're ultra conservative.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, reputation is number one for them. So if you're going to have an approach a financial institution, you just need to make sure that your company, as a non-financial, you have your ducks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have a compliance program. You have, SOC 1, SOC 2, PCI, all the accreditations that you need to have to offer. You need to have that, right?
Yeah.
You gotta. It's almost like you gotta pay to play. Now it's a bad message if you're talking to a very small fintech like my startup. Right, we spend most of our money on maintaining our SOC 2 compliance, right? But it's pay to play, right? So
Yep. Well, and at the end of the day, you're solving as an entrepreneur, you're passionate about the problem you're solving for your customer, and the rest of that stuff is just table stakes. You have to do it. So either get out of the business of solving that problem if you don't like it, or I know I'm being cheeky, but yeah.
No, but it's a fair statement. It's absolutely a fair statement. It's unfortunate, but it is fortunate. Like look at you as a consumer. If I'm using, a fintech app, you want to make sure that your money, your account information is safe and secure. It's not out in the dark web being sold for. But you want to make sure, right? So I'm an advocate for something like that. I'm not an advocate of overburdening a poor little company with, other things that they shouldn't have to worry about, right? And it's a fine dance, right? And that's the opportunity that I tell at least our bank partners, right? That there's opportunity here. There's money on the table. It's a symbiotic relationship between you and fintechs and other companies, right?
Well, and better that they let you do that than them trying to do it themselves. I think that's kind of like the point. I mentioned I was in Kelowna this past week with some of the new members of my team, and some of them were in product roles. And I ended up, so right when the pandemic happened, Dave McKay went on LinkedIn and did this live interview with the vice chair of MasterCard, Ajay. And there was a point in the interview, and I actually forgot, but I think I commented live during their interview. Who am I? Anyway, and but what the exchange was so powerful to me, and I think I've just realized why. It's because I've lived my whole career as a service provider, right? And never have been on the other side of the table as the financial institution until now. But the point, Dave McKay asked, and if you should go watch it. I find it even now, it's like 4 years ago. even now, it's just as aha, moment after moment for me. But what he said was, Dave McKay said, like, oh, we spent all this time building our brand, as RBC, and we want our customers to want our brand, to want us. And, like, what do you do, right? What do you do so that you stop yourself from becoming the dumb pipe of, and that the customer is saying, no, I want to make sure I'm always using an RBC product. And Ajay, and I'm paraphrasing, and I'm also making a point for this, but so go and listen to it if you took away the same thing. But he basically said, you know what? First of all, you have to know who your end customer is.
Thank you.
Our end customer is not your customer. It's you. Our end customer is the merchant or is the whomever. And our role is not to try and compete with their brand, is to actually, facilitate their brand with their customers. And he said, and this was the point that I loved the most, he said, and if you're not adding value to the customer in the delivery of whatever products and services you're offering, then, your brand ultimately doesn't deserve to be the brand of choice, right? So if PayPal's offering more value to your end customer than you are, RBC, then it's PayPal that they're going to attribute that value to, not you. So the whole point is about the value exchange. And I just thought it was brilliant to see like a vice chair of a billion dollar company saying that to the CEO of, one of the largest banks globally, and certainly the largest bank in Canada. So anyway.
And that, that's a great setup for the open banking discussion, because that's exactly what we're doing with the open banking.
Tell us about that then. Tell us the news.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. So the way we're positioning open banking, and the reason why we partner with Flinks, I love Flinks. I use Plaid in the US religiously for my startup. The user experience is fantastic.
Well, and they have more connections in the US, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But we'll all integrate Flinks. They're good people. And the reason why we partner with Flinks, and we kind of saw this coming, right? And look at our customers, credit unions, mid-sized financial institutions. I truly believe that open banking and the insights of open banking is going to open up the financial institutions' eyes of what their customers are actually gravitating towards. That's really not their products, right?
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're taking a little bit of Flinks data, a little bit of Everlink data, maturating it together, come up with a very compelling story, right?
Cool.
The rules and regulations, absolutely, we're going to respect it. We're definitely going to do it. That's just our mantra. But the data insights that we're getting, it's extremely valuable. A chief marketing or a CRO or a product officer at a financial institution, if they look at the data insights that we're providing, it's basically insight that they never received before ever.
Yeah.
So now we're serving that up, and that's basically the value prop is the data.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we're delivering, and I think when we talked to First Ontario, and they saw the insight, plus they like I kind of hope they picked us because of our brand as well and how we deliver and everything like that. Because what we say we do, we actually do, right? So from that perspective, when you get those data insights, they get quite excited, right?
Yeah, and I could jump all over that for an hour. But before we go there, tell us what the partnership actually is. So it's a partnership between Everlink, Flinks, and First Ontario?
Correct. So what we're doing is that we forge our relationship with Flinks to do the data maturation. Everlink and majority of our customers, we meet about, I think, 85% of the open banking use cases, right? Account balances, KYC, all that stuff. So from an Everlink perspective, we have lines of businesses that use those existing data sets for different use cases. All we're doing is basically taking that existing data and basically solving an open banking use case.
Okay.
So from a First Ontario perspective, to implement open banking, if they did it on their own, it's quite a steep investment, right? And also there's going to be talent changes as well, right? Because everything is API based. There's security involved, right? There's IDP involved and everything like that. So the lift is not for the faint of heart, right? So what we've done is we took the existing data set and the customers already give us today, put a different candy wrapper around it, call it open banking. Right. So we can solve for the account balances or KYC or transaction history type of use cases that majority of the fintechs are looking for. Okay. And then in return, the data that we have on the existing, like First Ontario is our customer, right? We provide enriched data back to them to basically say, hey, why is everyone going to Rocket Mortgage as an example, right? Why is someone doing this? And it just gives them good information to basically say, maybe I need to improve this product, or hey, here's an interesting fintech. Maybe I should partner with them.
Yeah.
And then roll them out, right?
What if it even just helped them understand what products they need to be offering their customers that they're getting elsewhere, right? Or that, those they should partner with those. No, it's that's awesome. So it's a partnership with Flinks, like full stop. And then it's a customer partnership with First Ontario to get them up and running. But you can do this for any other
financial institution that's an Everlink customer, because we have their data already today, right?
Yeah. And the data that you have it's not all their data. You have, are you able to kind of look across all their, members and customers that you process?
Right. So we have their member data because, for example, we drive ATMs for our customers. So we can actually spin off an ATM transaction for a use case where a fintech says, hey, what account number do you have and how much balance you have? And is that the account that you want to take money out of? So that could be accommodated, right? Yeah. No lift from the customers, right?
Yeah.
And we have fraud products where when there's a fraud that's happening, we have to pick up the phone, validate, hey, Romi, are you actually in Quebec or are you in Ontario? And there's, there's questions that we ask. So we have that data, right? For a different product. So what we're doing is, and with First Ontario, we asked them, we have this data set. Would you allow us to share to meet the open bank? It's their data, right? It's absolutely their data.
Yeah.
And we're just saying we can use the existing data sets to solve for quite a few number of open banking use cases. So they were pretty excited. I think they're more excited about the insights that we're going to provide as well.
Yeah. So you haven't mentioned the mobile banking tech partner or the core banking tech partner, or the, let's say in the case of credit unions, the centrals and those things. So do you not need to kind of plug into all of these other folks in order to be able to do what you do?
So here's Everlink. We have a lot of customers. Each customer, we have a whole gamut of different banking systems that we actually currently connect with today, including mobile banking customers as well, right? So the stance we took to lift off all the open banking use cases, we're trying to reduce the friction so we can get into market quicker. So consent management as an example, right? I looked at the Central One press release, and they solve for that consent management with Blink, which I think is fantastic. It's very complementary to what we're doing, because any customer that's jumping on board with our open banking solution with Flinks, they can, and if they're running Central One's Member Direct, the consent management's already there. So that just kind of gives you the full package and the full picture of an open banking perspective. So we don't really deal with the online banking, but what we've done is that we will expose consent management APIs, or Flinks also has a white label consent management, where if someone logs into online banking as a credit union or a bank, they can actually fork over to Flinks' consent management. And they'll obviously color code their logos and everything like that. And that just gets you into market.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then hopefully with the data analytics that we're going to provide, hopefully there's some revenue behind that where they can then constantly increase their investment on the user experience, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So we approach it.
That's awesome. I think even just the understanding of who your customers are and what they're doing, is, well worth the investment, to try and, like, to your point, and I think it's any role inside a financial institution, because that's the world that we're entering, is where, open banking just, it does open the ability to really look at the customer as the whole, rather than the sum of its products or business units or whatever that they fall into. Yeah.
And Sue, honestly, most of the people miss that point. So as we present that to them, and I get deers in the headlight, like, how did you even get this data?
Yeah.
Like, how did you get this, right?
It's in the transactions.
Right.
Like, I'd love to actually ask you, how did you, because I did one project with one bank a few years ago where we looked at all the transaction data, and it's a disaster because there's no uniformity to, what kind of transaction code they get. And so they have a ton of heavy lifting, especially the bigger they get. The bigger they are. How do you do that? How do you take Amazon or Amazon Prime or Amazon Marketplace or Amazon blah, blah, blah? All of those transactions are in the data, and nobody really knows what of that is actually somebody using an Amazon payment, vehicle, right?
So we have a lot of smart people in Everlink. That's all I can say right now on that part of it. I'm not saying it's hard to detect whether this is an Amazon transaction or this is a Square at a t-shirt shop type of transaction.
Yeah.
There's enough information to basically create a story.
Yeah.
Right. So our job is to let our customers know we have a tool to create that story. It's your data. Would you like to hear that story? Right.
Yes,
and that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing with First Ontario. I'm going to remember you said that, okay? I'm going to absolutely remember that you said that.
And how do you make sense of all the other providers out there, like, the Caspians and, you mentioned Plaid in the US. I mean, all of them are in the market in Canada as well. SimCore, we haven't even talked about that. Let's not talk about that. No, not because of any disparaging reasons, but because, they're doing their own thing. But, like, how do you, if you're a credit union, give some advice, or smaller financial institution, what's your best advice to them for how they figure all this stuff out? Who should they be talking to?
So my humble advice, like, if you look at the Caspian one, right? Like, talk to them, compare, talk to us, compare, right? I think the best thing to do, if I was a credit union, I would talk, and open banking is something that I want to investigate and talk about. I would learn more about it, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be coming up with series of communications just to explain what open banking is, explain what Everlink is, how they're playing, and all that stuff. And also, what's going to happen when open banking becomes a thing in Canada that no one's actually even talking about. So we actually solve for that as well, too, right?
Yeah.
And so we're going to be, hopefully over communicating to the market to kind of tell our story. Now, I probably
that's great.
Just teed off all of our competitors right now, so they're probably amping up and saying, "Hey, let's get ahead of this before Everlink does." But educate yourself. Educate yourself.
At the end of the day, you have your special. First of all, you have all these things that enable you to compete in a different way than, than I won't repeat, but some of the names that we've already mentioned, right? And your special sauce isn't going to be how much you understand open banking versus someone else. It's what you're actually doing to enable your customers. Yeah. And then also your position in the market. You have, and I think this is what I think everyone has their own ability to put their own flavor on, with their, like, take their strategy, translate that into, what does that mean in terms of our vision for where we want to go? Those things are all unique. The open banking, from a communication standpoint, that's not the IP. The IP is what you're doing to enable people with your solutions. So I don't know. I always think I posted something recently about, competition, and, like, I think as an ecosystem, just like with Fintechs Canada, Fintechs Canada has helped bring all of these companies together that are many of them competitors to have a shared voice and to all learn. it's what you take away from it. That
Like he's doing a fantastic job. Like
he
absolute
is,
stuff. He's doing a stuff. He's just an awesome human being, and I love his passion and what he's doing with the government.
Alex,
Alex is he's one of the reasons why I could set up this podcast.
Yes,
because he started learning. Like Mark Ripplinger is on the board for Fintech Canada, and he's kind of telling me more about the company and everything like that. So he says you guys are very interesting. Very interesting company.
He's in such a unique position to see all the different sides, right? And I see. You're right. I agree. We did a podcast the last week of December, and he was all like, "Oh, we're just gonna slide it in there, and nobody's gonna listen to it, but I'm gonna be very happy about that." And I'm like, "Oh, come on." Like, and unfortunately, he is right that because it was released in the last week of December, it has not been listened to nearly as much as, probably yours will be. But he said some fascinating things, including he dropped the F-bomb twice. But the only reason why it was fascinating is because it was it was the answer to a question, and that was his 4-letter word was the answer. And I think it's just refreshing, right? Like drop all the jargon and the
real.
The business speak, So anyway.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if anybody on my Everlink team sees this video, they're going to be shocked that I haven't dropped an F-bomb yet.
Oh. Okay, well, let's keep it clean. Did I miss anything? Have we covered?
No, I think we covered good. I think this is really good, and I really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Me too.
I see the passion in you, and hopefully likewise as well. And I think we are going to make a difference. We will be making a difference for sure.
Well, it's a bit of a job hazard to do this because. Every single, company that I've talked to, I would love to do business with, both as my, not in terms of me selling my wares, but actually facilitating, bringing your technology in. And because I just, the more you learn, the more you realize that there are solutions out there to solve problems that when you're inside your 4 walls, you don't even know that. Like,
exactly right.
And so this, I hope, will help people see, like there's a solution to getting you to be able to start to understand and implement open banking ready. It's right there. You don't have to go and solve it all yourself. So cool stuff. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed my time here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. Hopefully next week.
You have to go. Oh, very funny. All right. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Looking for more insights? Visit us at fintechscanada.ca or follow us on LinkedIn. We'll see you next time for more on Canada's latest fintech innovations.